Are your judgmental attitudes about others hindering your ability to make amends?
Well, in this episode, we'll share how learning to value the people we wronged helped us to make better and more complete amends. Well, it's August 10th, and it's time for another double shot of My Sober Truth. So I like the topic of this, and I love the question that you asked beforehand, and especially about those judgmental attitudes.
Yeah.
And this reading kind of hit close to home because there was that one line in there that said what were seemingly impersonal acts were actually personal affronts because it was people of worth whom we harmed.
Yes.
And you look at that, and given what we talked about a couple of days ago, or I think maybe yesterday, about the shame and guilt thing,
right?
You could see a tendency for that to creep back up
in
a situation. But I like the wisdom of what we're talking about in this reading, that learning to value. I mean, think about steps 1 through 7. We're learning to value our relationship with our higher power. We're learning to forgive and value ourselves. Those are some things that we're doing. And now we're getting to this really third phase of making things right with others. And part of that is learning to value who they are.
Right.
And it's especially interesting in the light of what we talked about in the last few days about forgiving the folks that have wronged us. But this seems like, if yesterday was forgive others like we want to be forgiven, it sounds like today is more about loving others and respecting others and honoring others like we want to be loved, respected, and honored.
Exactly.
And so as we dive in, I want to ask you a question, Sean. As you went through this process and you were learning this for yourself the first time and putting it into action, how did learning to value the people you've wronged help you make better amends?
Well, it's this, I keep going back and talking about it. It's this step work. It is a process of, there's not one thing that I did to help me with that, but it keeps going back, and you just mentioned it. We were talking about yesterday. When you're talking about forgiveness, we want to be forgiven, but we need to offer forgiveness in the same way that we want to be forgiven. Well, it goes back to loving and valuing people in your life. I need to offer value and love to others the same way that I would like to have value and love offered to me. So when you start thinking about it, and it's a mindset change. It doesn't come overnight. You start working these steps and you get a clearer vision of yourself. And as I started becoming a better man, I started getting a better sense of who I wanted to be. But I kept reminding myself, and I kept getting reminded, that a lot of these folks that I have resentments against aren't doing the things that I'm doing. They're not working the steps that I'm working. They're not there yet. Right. Maybe they never get there. A lot of people never get there. So would I have wanted the things that I have done held against me? No. I had this thing happen fairly early on where I was working some earlier steps, and my sponsor just really drove this point home about, we were talking about someone that I had big resentments against. It was also someone that I owed a lot of amends to. So we were talking about this, and I couldn't break past. We talked and talked and talked for an hour or whatever, and I couldn't break past all the ways that I felt that I had been wronged by this person. Mm-hmm. And so my sponsor kind of got me off of talking about that and had me start talking about all the ways that I had harmed others. Mm-hmm. And it is a prime example of what we're talking about today. So he had me start talking about all the ways that I'd harmed others. And I got to talking about that, and it was kind of a mindset change in me as I started talking. I'm like, man, I really hate that I've done this, and I didn't. If I had to do over again, I don't want to do it that way. And I'd like to, I want to make amends to this person. And so he really kind of got me going in that other direction. Then he said, well, if you could ask this person for anything, what would you want to ask them for? And I said, well, I just want to ask them to forgive me, to understand that I'm trying to be better now, and that I'd like some forgiveness. I'd like for them to give me a break. He said, well, what do you think that other person we spent an hour talking about would want from you for the way they wronged you. And I went, oh, man. You talk about just the perfect way to kind of hammer that point home. If I want it, I need to be willing to give it.
Right.
You know, you got to give to receive. And it was, I don't know, maybe any other thing that really just drives home what this process does for you, or what it did for me.
Right.
Than kind of that story, because I had all this resentment build up, and like all at once I seen it. I couldn't see it. I couldn't put my finger on just how bad it had built up in me. And then all at once, in like a blink of an eye, he said those words to me that he said, and it made me think about it in a different perspective. And I went, man, I've been doing this wrong. And I had to go back and regroup and start thinking about things from a different perspective. And it goes back to what my sponsor told me early on. He's never met a person who he wanted to thump on the head who wouldn't have been better served with a hug.
Right.
And it's just true. I don't want to hear that all the time, because I'm mad and I'm upset and I have a resentment. So I'm not in the place to hear that all the time. But it's the truth. Usually the resentments that I have against other people, it's not really something they even meant to do to me. It's I'm resenting them for something that was just them doing the best that they could.
Right.
And trying to figure their life out. Well, they don't have this program.
Right.
I do. So it's not up to me to live their life for them. It's up to me to live my life in the best way that I know how.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. It reminds me of that universal law of sowing and reaping. If you want forgiveness, give away some forgiveness. If you want to be valued, value others in that situation. And
if you want to be listened to, listen to others. Whatever it is that you want, do it. Give it away, and it'll come back to you.
Yeah, but I love that's the point that this particular daily reflection makes. And again, as we realize the value in others, you know, it's all part of that step work. We get out of our own selves, we lay down that ego, and we start seeing others as valuable.
Right.
You know, just as we hope our higher power sees us of having value, we need to see the people that he's surrounded us with as also having value in that situation. So as we wrap up, let's kick this back to our viewers and see what they have to say today on this subject. So guys, how did learning to value the people you wrong help you make better and more complete amends? We'd love to hear your take on this and hear your stories. Take a few minutes and put your answers down in the comments section below. We can't wait to read what you have to say on this subject. And on that note, from My Sober Truth, I'm Mark.
Hey, and I'm Sean. And here's hoping that today you stay drunk with success. Love y'all.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you're thirsty for another round, then belly on up to mysobertruth.com and click on the double shot button today. There you'll find the encouragement, inspiration, and support that'll help you stay clean, on track, and prospering in every area of your life. Take a moment to subscribe to this channel, and if you got a minute, stick around. Let's watch another video together.